If success is still deciding whether you feel like you're enough, this video is for you. Because maybe you achieve something, you feel good for a minute, and then your mind moves the goalpost again. Now you need another win, or to continue striving just to feel good enough. A lot of men think they're chasing success, but really they're chasing relief from the old story that says they're not enough yet. So the real question is, are you becoming the man you respect? Or are you still trying to prove that you're finally enough? So I want to walk through this clearly. We're going to talk about why more success still might not make you feel like enough. The old story you're using to measure yourself, the difference between your ego and your real identity, and what to do when life hits that part of you. I don't think the problem is that you need to achieve more. Sometimes the problem is that you're still measuring yourself the same with the same old story that made you feel like you're not enough in the first place. You're not looking at who you have become. You're looking at the gap of who you are and who you think you're supposed to be. And if you're not careful, that whole gap becomes your identity. You'll start to think, I'm behind, or I should have started earlier, or I'm average. I'm not respected enough. I'm not confident enough yet. I'm not successful enough yet. And every part of your life becomes evidence of those stories. It's like this, like work goes well and you feel good about yourself. If work goes badly, you feel like you're failing as a man. If someone's giving you attention, now you feel valuable. And these are the traps. Your life becomes this constant scoreboard and your identity keeps changing based on what has happened to you on that score. If you live long enough, you don't just chase success, you start needing validation to feel like you're enough constantly. The simplest way that I can explain this is two parts. You have your core identity, and then you have this outer shell. The core identity is the deeper part of you. It's your values, your faith, the things that matter to you, your character, your effort, your courage, how you keep going, your ability to be honest with yourself and learn and to show up for people you love. That is the core. That's what you want to have solid. But then you have this outer shell. This is your ego. This is your status in society, your job title, how much you've earned, your recent wins, your appearances, your performance, how you're currently doing, your follower count, someone else's opinion, your last win or last failure. Now, none of those things are meaningless because they matter, but they're not supposed to be the deepest truth about who you are. This is dangerous because this is what happens to us. We base the core identity on this outer shell. And the problem is when something hits the shell, you let it to start rewrite that identity, that core identity inside of it. A piece of feedback will hit your ego and it turns into I'm failing. Something affects your confidence and then it's like I'm not good enough. Or you have a bad day where you don't perform well, you're not as efficient. And then you start thinking, maybe I'm not who I thought I was. You start having imposter syndrome. So you see that the perceptions and things that happen to you, if you're not careful, they start leaking into who you feel you are. And that is how you abandon yourself. It doesn't happen all at once, but by letting those bruises to your ego becoming a verdict or rewriting your very identity. I've felt this in my own life recently. I got some hard feedback at work, and it's the kind of feedback where I felt like I've been trying my ass off, thinking I was doing well, but the reality was I wasn't meeting expectations in the way I thought I was. And I'm not going to lie and say that it didn't affect me at all or it didn't hit me. It absolutely hit my ego. It made me question things. It brought up imposter syndrome. It brought up fear and frustration. And that old story of maybe I'm not as capable as I thought I was, or as good as I thought I was. And the old version of me would have let that go straight to the center. It would have carried over in other areas of my life. I would have taken the feedback I'm getting it and turn it into my full identity. Like I'm not good enough, or they don't believe in me, or maybe I'm not the man I thought I was becoming. But this time something is radically different. I could feel the bruises and the hits, and I can get beat up all day, but it is not reaching the center of who I am. And that's the best way that I can describe it. Feedback matters, and I need to look and learn from it. I need to tighten up, but it doesn't leak through. It doesn't get to define me as who I am. It's one piece of data. It's not my whole identity. And that's the difference that really matters. Because there's a version of you that can fail and still not abandon himself, still not feel like they're less than. There's a version of you that can take hits and still come home as a present father, a good husband, a good friend, or simply a man that doesn't let what happens to him affect who he believes he is. That is the man that I am trying to become. And this is where I think a lot of men get stuck. We think the answer is to achieve enough that we never feel like we're not enough again. But if your identity is built only on this one thing, on achievement, it can never fully save you. Because because as soon as you get that win, it's like you need another win. You're fueling off that approval. You get approval, you need more approval. And once you reach that next level, your mind finds a new version to compare to tell you that you're enough. So your goal cannot be just to achieve more. You're probably going to strive anyway. This is what you do. You're probably going to keep building. You're going to keep training and working, improving. This is how you show up. And I'm not here to tell you to become passive. What I'm saying is you need to stop letting achievement being the only evidence that you're worth respecting. Because achievement is the only thing that gives you worth. Then failure will always have the power to take it away. That is not freedom. That is not confidence. And that is not self-respect. That is just living inside a story that you did not choose for yourself. So how do you know if this is happening to you? Well, look at what changes your mood. Look what changes how you see yourself. If one bad meeting makes you feel like a failure, pay attention. If a rejection makes you feel worthless and question everything and introduces self-doubt, pay attention. If one small comparison makes you feel like you're behind, pay attention. It doesn't mean you're weak. It just means that you're living in the outer shell and it has leaked into your core. It means that the story of who you are has become too attached to things that are actually outside of you. And this is your opportunity to separate them again. This is your opportunity to see yourself as a solid person of who you are, not being affected by the day-to-day events, achievements, wins, and losses that you have. You can care about your success without making it your identity. You can care about money without making it your worth. You can care about performance without turning every mistake into a proof that you're not enough. This is the shift. You're not your wins or your failures. You're not what your boss tells you. You're not the promotions that you've earned. You're the man who gets to choose what those things mean. But here is the part that most men miss. This measuring system probably wasn't even yours to begin with. And this is where the inherited identity comes in, because most of us didn't create our measuring system from scratch. We picked it up from our surroundings, from the people that were around, our family, schools, sports, from rejection, from the status games that we all play, from what society told us a man or successful person should be. Somewhere along the way, you probably learned that you need to achieve to matter, that you need to do something impressive to be truly respected. And once those stories get inside of you, you can spend years trying to improve your life, still measure yourself from this story that wasn't even yours to begin with. That's why your outside could get better, but you still don't feel free. Because your outer life changed, but the way you measure still did not. It's that same old system of comparison. You've become more disciplined, more skilled, successful. You're earning more money. You have a family or a better relationship, but there's still a story inside you that says, not enough yet, not enough. I have to keep going. That is your enemy. It's not ambition and not your goals or even your desire to be respected. It's this. It's knowing that the real enemy is the inherited identity that keeps telling you your worth is always another achievement away. So what do you do with this? I think you start with one question. What am I using to measure myself right now? Is it approval? Is it money? Is it recent success? Different pieces of feedback? And then ask, did this hit my ego or did it actually change who I am? Because those are different things. A failure can hit your ego. A rejection can hit your ego. A bad day can hit your ego. But none of those things have to touch your core. They don't have to change your values. They don't have to change how you show up for your family or how hard you try or your effort. So then ask yourself one more question. What would the man I respect do next? Not the man who needs approval, not the one trying to prove he's enough. The one that you actually respect, what would he do next? Maybe he would tighten up. Maybe he would look at some of his mistakes and admit to them. Maybe he would build again. Maybe he would take some rest and come back. But he would, for sure, stop making one bad moment mean that his whole life is off track. This is how you stop abandoning yourself and letting success decide if you're enough. It's not by becoming so successful that nothing ever hurts again, but by becoming solid enough on the inside that when something does hurt, it doesn't get to change that core identity. If your identity is still built on what you do and how well you do it, or every setback that you make, you are abandoning that core identity. You're letting something outside of you define that. And I think the real work is learning how you can keep becoming that guy anyway. Even when your ego gets hit, even when people do not celebrate or believe in you like you do, or even when those old stories come back, because the man that I want to become doesn't abandon himself every time life gives me a reason to not feel enough. So that's where we are. If success is deciding if you're enough or not, just realize and pay attention to where you're measuring and if those stories are affecting who you believe you are. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.